He's said that he doesn't mind being recorded. Matter of fact, I let him know when I'm not recording, so that he knows it's not being recorded, because he might say recorded and later on say, well, I told you this or I told you that, and you want me to record it again? Well, I wasn't recording at the time, I'm sorry. Anyway, with him being a witness to the situation with Molly and him going to come forward, but also with the stories that he tells, it's difficult to know what's the truth and what's not unless you sort through it. Now, with some of the stories he tells, there's his friends. Now, there's a few stories that I tell where I don't tell you who the name of the person is because there's safety issues involved. So there's a possibility that might be his situation with those people. The possibility that he's saying that because he wants to share a story that's similar, so he and have a friend. And he is real super nice. Now, with him admitting to being schizophrenic, that does make it so that his situation is more understandable. And there's some of the stuff that he said that, of course, I wasn't sure if it was true or not, and I did have to verify it. Like at a school for threatening to blow it up. That's true. That is absolutely true. He did threaten to blow up the school. I verified it with his parents. But also with them and having that situation in their own lives, at first it does make sense why they would say when I treated like I'm schizophrenic, that the police like I'm schizophrenic so they can alleviate themselves of their own sin and wrongdoing. And people speak up to me and say, hey, it's not okay to treat schizophrenic people like that. Well, I'm not claiming that it is okay to treat schizophrenic people like that. What I'm saying is that if somebody's not schizophrenic, if it's wrong to treat a schizophrenic person like that, it's wrong to treat somebody who's not schizophrenic like that as well. Now with Scott, how did he get busted? Between him in to save some lives, his turned him in. They did the right thing, and you know what? They still talk to each other. They still work together to this day. They understand that he has that difficulty. There's also Jared, and here's the thing. Just because you don't see their disabilities doesn't mean they don't have it. With Jared, he might be able to find the time. That doesn't mean that he's going to. He might get involved with something else. He might have stuff at work that's weighing heavily on his mind. And with Scott's mom and everything that she's dealing with taking care of these people and grandbabies as well, and being the sole person doing the paperwork for her entire family, for her to take time out to try to help me is absolutely magnificent. And I am eternally grateful for it. Now, when it doesn't pan out, if she doesn't show up and it doesn't go through, obviously it's not because I wasn't trying, which is one of the things through all of this that I've been trying to impress on everybody. These people who say they want to help, say they're going to help, and then they don't show up, and I get treated like I made you people up, like you're figments of my imagination, like I'm some schizophrenic. And then they're using that as an excuse not to look at evidence of the crimes committed against me or against others. Police even took part in threatening, harassing, and intimidating myself and those who helped me. When Dallas told me that he was intimidated by Scott DaCosta, Scott DaCosta used his children to convince Dallas Richmond not to help me. You know what? Dallas did let me know about it. Not only did he let me know about it, he did cut me off from utilizing that stuff out in the shed, but he let me use the internet in the house eventually. with the safety issue created by Scott DaCosta and his deputies in 2018 that remained unaddressed and resulted in Scott DaCosta being allowed to assault me along with the Trooper Lassen for trying to turn in Scott DaCosta to the state troopers. Every time a crime is committed against me, you expect me to let it go. You don't stop to take a look at the consequences for my future. Now, there is a chance that he might actually be schizophrenic and delusional. There's also a chance that he might have been misdiagnosed because he doesn't come across to me as somebody, when he tells something that is probably not true, the person who's telling that story because he believes it, he seems like the kind of person who's telling that story because he doesn't fit in and wants to. He wants to have something to put into the conversation and at least some connection to make. And there's also the fact that those stories might actually be true. I know that the stories that he's told me that I've wanted to know well enough to verify, well, I was able to verify he was telling the truth. So even though my opinion on the situation may be a little bit different after being told that he's had a diagnosis, I record. It's not like some situation where I'm trying to hide the fact that I record. I speak to all the people that I record about recording. Long time to help me to turn it in, and why he wants to, after the fact, after a very, very long time of having to fucking deal with that shit, shrugged it off and blown it off, they want to go, oh, well, she's not here anymore, so there's no longer a reason. That's the same thing that Scott DaCosta did, so that bugs me to no end. So you think it's over? See, I was thinking it was over in Virginia when I fucking left. I was thinking that, hey, I don't have to deal with these drug addicts and having to be their scapegoat if I'm not here. But that is still dealing with the consequences. I'm dealing with the consequences of nobody helping me to turn in Waylon Lolatai and the fact that he was able to harm so many more people after me. I'm sickened by the entire state of Colorado and me speaking out about how disabled people, especially if they're called mentally ill, are treated. And they're all treated as if no matter what, everything that they say must be a fucking lie because they must be schizophrenic. Because, of course, according to the law, they discredit the victims. Now, there are people like that lady who wanted to come yell at me about Robert Farnsworth being mentally ill. He's not just mentally ill, he's got very specific. So with Mr. Farnsworth being schizophrenic with delusions, but also being the violent type, you get to see with Scott, not violent. Not violent. He's not getting violent or trying to get violent. I know for certain that from what I've seen of him, I haven't seen any schizophrenic. That's a major issue. I mean, the things, the tall tales that I checked on turned out to be actually true stories. He did threaten to blow up his fucking school, and he did admit to it. He didn't try to hide it. His parents didn't try to hide it. They admitted to it. Being schizophrenic and delusional, matter of fact, that shows quite the opposite. He told the truth. The situation did happen. Now, obviously, even if he were schizophrenic, not a violent schizophrenic, like Mr. Farnsworth, were the wrong people who did nothing wrong. And that lady who wanted to stick up for Mr. Farnsworth using mentally ill as an excuse for him to get away with it. And that's what people keep wanting to push on me. Oh, Sean, you're using mentally ill as an excuse. You're using autism as an excuse for what you did. No, people are using autism as an excuse for what they did. The things that I'm doing out of necessity because my rights have been denied because of the assumption of schizophrenia. Now, I said right at the very beginning how this was going to work out, how the term mentally ill is used. So, although that lady wanted to try to use mentally ill as an excuse for Mr. Farnsworth, I wasn't going to fucking take the bait on that. Whether he's mentally ill or not, he is physically violent. And if you are not schizophrenic and you are physically violent, then I am scared of you. So then you add the schizophrenia and the fact that that guy might flip out like an alcoholic at any point in time. You know, that ought to put something at least a little bit in perspective. As far as Scott goes, the stories that I've checked out turned out to be true. The things that seem like they're far-fetched, it seems more like he's trying to be friendly. It doesn't seem like this is some delusion that he has in his head. It seems like you. Oh, they listen to some music. Only 11% battery. This is. Anyway, the thing is, with a lot of these people, the fact that they are not afraid to speak, the fact that told me I'm not afraid to speak. You know, I'm not afraid of being recorded. If there's something that I say, you know, I'm going to stand behind my words. And there's a lot of people out here that you just assume that because they're on the streets, they must be paranoid schizophrenics who are violent. And here's the thing, here in the United States, 40% of those who are diagnosed as schizophrenic were misdiagnosed. You know, you get that kid that hasn't been popular, hasn't been the cool kid, and isn't accepted by the other students. Yeah, he might tell a few tall tales to try to get friends. And you know what? That has more to do with society not accepting him than anything else. No matter who that may be, whether it's me or somebody here in Tillamook or whether it's that lady Jamie up there in Hood River. You know, if somebody's schizophrenic, that doesn't give you an excuse to harm them. That doesn't make it okay to commit crimes against them. And it's horrible that anybody who's called mentally ill is assumed to be a violent schizophrenic. Somebody like Mr. Farnsworth. Now, I've had a lot of people tell me that Mr. Farnsworth wasn't always like that. He didn't flip out until his brother was killed. And you know, that's something to note too. You know, Mr. Farnsworth is not the only person who's had a mental breakdown after losing a loved one. Scott, I'm talking about you on my YouTube channel. Okay. I was talking about how important it is, like, to be honest.
You know what max clearance means, because as soon as they drive in there, they're gonna hit the concrete.
Does that fold in half?
Yes.
Holy crap! That is quite the gizmo.
Great for my games, great for videos.
I got a tablet for that. Your brother's hopefully going to be able to help me this weekend, but it depends on how he's feeling. That's another thing I was bitching about on my YouTube channel. I'm like, these people have their own lives. You know, it's not that they're not witnesses to the situation. They have their own lives. It's tough to make time and all that. On the bright side, if I was willing to go buy people beer, I'd have plenty of friends temporarily. Don't laugh at my jokes, it only encourages me.
damn thing around here.
right?
Hardly anybody. Some
Yeah.
people will.
I'm gonna have to call Tillamook, Oregon, Little Nebraska. This place is, well, even though you got hills and trees and stuff, the mentality here is podunk and redneck, but not podunk redneck like East Coast. It's podunk redneck like Chapel, Nebraska. Cops are all gonna wipe each other's butts. I was also talking about how just because somebody's all right, so they use the term mentally ill to try to blanket anybody who's got depression or anything like that as if they're schizophrenic and delusional. But then somebody who is schizophrenic and delusional, just because they're schizophrenic and delusional, makes it easy to victimize them. Because then people don't want to believe anything that they say. And you say, hey, I have the evidence, but they're not going to look. And that's why misdiagnoses are so important to pay attention to. Because a lot of people, like, for example, you're trying to turn in a police officer that raped you. You know, you're trying to turn him in, and he calls you mentally ill, and it's assumed that you're schizophrenic, and he tells the hospital that you're schizophrenic, and so they write it down as if you are schizophrenic. You're not actually diagnosed, because a police officer can't diagnose you. But then, also, just because you are schizophrenic, no matter who it is, doesn't mean that the crime wasn't committed. If somebody's going to rape somebody, they're going to rape somebody that they think they can get away with raping. And if they can discredit that person by calling them mentally ill or schizophrenic, that makes them easy to victimize, and that's why they are at-risk adults. And anybody who is called mentally ill has to fall under that category because so many people have misunderstandings about it. Then we got the legal diagnosis versus the medical part of it. Like legally, when they call you mentally ill, they're calling you schizophrenic and delusional. And as far as the medical community goes, the term mentally ill is not even acknowledged as a diagnosis because it covers everything. As I was talking about how just because somebody has a diagnosis doesn't mean that they're liars. And I even cited the thing about the first day that I had you recorded on my channel talking about the, by the way, that didn't actually record the whole thing. It was all splotchy because we were having internet connection issues. But when you were talking about blowing the school up and getting kicked out, I was like, you know, that does seem far-fetched. But then your parents both told me about it, and then you told me again. I'm like, well, see, just because somebody's got that assumption or that the blanket, what do they call that? Just because they pigeonhole it doesn't mean that it's not the truth. You know, like the situation with Molly. Obviously, there were witnesses. Obviously, that did happen. And obviously, with your parents verifying your story, that's the thing, is even if I think it's bullshit, doesn't mean that it's bullshit.
They're the ones that turned me in for it, so.
That's what they said. They're recording telling me that too. Your dad's like, yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not afraid. They're my words, I'll stick with them. Yeah. So yeah, I was doing my early morning bitching, and I saw you over here. I'm like, you know, while I'm making one about Scott, I might as well allow him to get involved and tell him what I'm doing. Saw Dallas today too. He was gonna help me to turn that in, but he's been running around doing a bunch of stuff trying to, well, at least he's not having to stay in the parking lot anymore. That's nice. For him being a local and having to stay in a parking lot, it doesn't give me much faith in getting unhomeless here.
Where literally majority of the locals either had homes and just ended up getting kicked out and became homeless, or like you transfer here, no housing. And it's bullshit.
There's no housing anywhere. They got money to put you on a bus to somewhere else. That'll put you on a bus to somewhere else. That'll put you on a bus to somewhere else.
Yeah.
They also tell you, well, if you're being victimized, then you need to move. And then they tell you, well, you should try applying for housing. And then you're on a waiting list for 2 years while you're stuck in an area where you're being abused. But you might finally get the housing in that area, but you're still being abused. And you're still trying to turn it in, and you're still getting blown off by the people you're supposed to go to. That's the problem. The biggest problem with your mom is your mom, and it's not your mom being the problem. It's the fact that she's got her own family to deal with. And for me, I feel like shit asking her to take time out. And then there's when things happen, like when your dad's phone was wanting to do the update thing. Like, I have had crap like that happen to me so much when it was an important call that I needed to make. And then, of course, if I try explaining that to the courts, hey, I had people that were trying to help me, but life happened. There's lots of people all throughout this that life just happened, but then they never came forward about it. And I was treated like I was some schizophrenic and delusional person making it up. Meanwhile, on my YouTube channel, I got it recorded with Marcia Estrada, who's able to make a diagnosis of schizophrenia and delusions, and she's the only doctor that I saw long enough for somebody to actually legally be able to diagnose it, and she said I'm not. So I'm still trying to... I speak up about how wrong it is to give people the schizophrenic treatment, and then I also speak up about how wrong it is to treat a schizophrenic person that way. But a lot of times when I talk to somebody who's got a family member who's schizophrenic about the situation, and they automatically want to jump to the assumption that I'm saying that schizophrenic people deserve that treatment, and that ain't true either. No. Or delusional people, or people with dementia, or, people with alternate issues. But then there's the fact that almost half the states of the union treat autism like it's schizophrenia, or like it's dementia or delusional, and it's not. It's a communication issue. Yeah. All right, I guess I talked a bunch. Yes, sir. Going back in?
Just 30.
Oh, geez. All right, well, I'll probably be in Starbucks here shortly. Then there's the fact that there's a lot of things that I do need to get done, like as far as the photocopies go. I got a copy machine even, but it doesn't do me any good without a place to plug it in, and a place to plug it in with my computer, because that's kind of necessary for the thing to function. And meanwhile, the computer that it needs to be hooked up to is a desktop. Like, it'll take about 3 trips to take everything in to the Starbucks that would be required for me to make photocopies with my scanning equipment. And this is all stuff that I don't really know how to use. The stuff I do know how to use, it's just barely. I bought this stuff because I was told, hey, this is what you need and that's what you need, and it all costs money. But you know what? No matter how much money I spend, I keep getting sent to the wrong people. And then I'll get a stalemate POS. One of these places like Jen Beebe, for example, from Region 1. Oh, yes, it is her job to help me turn these things in. Of course it is. And she's going to help me to do that, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it's not what she did. After over a year and a half of going to her because she's supposed to advocate for me and help me to turn in my predators and stop the abuse. And after a year and a half, with the last 6 months of that, her being court ordered to help me and couldn't even return a fucking call for 6 goddamn months. 6 months of me taking abuse. 6 months of her getting paid to do a job she wasn't doing that, of course, Megan Misigatis ended up doing. It's not that I didn't go to the places I was told to go to. I absolutely did. The problem is that these people absolutely refused to do the job that they were supposed to do. Many of these places told me it's not their job, and when I looked it up, it turns out it is their job. But no matter what, having to go in alone, nothing happens. My frustration with a lot of these people, it's very real. It is frustrating to be abused and to try to turn it in, and for people to either A, not take it seriously so they don't help you, or B, their lives are so screwed up and they're so busy getting screwed over that they can't. They can't find the time. And then there's the ones, of course, that have plenty of time, they just don't care, you know? They've never had to experience it. They've never gone through it. They've never had the mentally ill treatment. Their families actually give a shit about them. You know, it's different for them than it is for us. Now, just because somebody hasn't been through the same things doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Just because somebody's never been homeless doesn't mean that they're a bad person. They're just ignorant of the situation. And to some degree, that's a good thing. You don't want other people to go through the hell that we go through. But at the same time, it's that experience that bonds us, and it's that experience that creates change. There's a lot of people I know who are completely anti-hobo. They hate homeless people. Absolutely hate them. For no reason. When I say for no reason, I mean they're blaming all homeless people for one or two homeless people that they had bad interactions with. Most of the homeless people you know, you don't even know they're homeless unless they tell you. But you make excuses. And that's what hurts. See, when we're harmed and crimes are committed against us, you make excuses why we must have wanted, needed, or chose for those things to happen to us. And that is not the case. See, that's one of the biggest issues we've got with law enforcement, is that they're victim blaming and shaming. When a woman goes in and says, hey, I was raped, the last thing she needs to hear out of a police officer is, well, are you sure you didn't just ask for it maybe a little? Are you fucking kidding me? Where did you get your badge? Out of a Cracker Jack box? It don't make any sense. Now with Molly, we get to see the situation with her where, you know, at some point she comes across as a schizophrenic with the stories that she's telling. Someone who's delusional with the stories that she's telling. But really, it's a matter of one-upmanship. Any story that you've got, she's got one that's better. For a lot of people, that's how they try to make friends. You get to see how evil and mean and cruel she was to people who didn't give her what she wanted. But you also get to see how nice and sweet that she was when she wanted to manipulate people into giving her what she wanted. Whoo! How many times did she come up talking nice to me after Tom said, hey, Sean, don't tell her where I'm at. You don't know nothing. And she'd come up to me talking sweet to me because she wanted to know where he was at. And you know, even especially after she threatened to fucking kill him. When he told me that she was threatening to kill him and threatening to kill me, and that she had tried to insinuate that if he left, she was going to claim he did something sexual to her. And then he tells me, and this is all recorded, which is great. At least I've got evidence of it. He tells me she's pretending like I would tie her up and rape her. Now, isn't that common? A man tries to turn a woman in, and the first thing she goes for is those 3 lies. The situation with Molly is not much different from the situation with Natalie, except that, well, Molly isn't young and pretty. Now, as far as whether or not Molly is actually in jail or not, I don't know. And whether or not she will try to take revenge when she gets out or not, I don't know. I do know that the police here in Tillamook are well aware that I'm trying to turn them in. They might try to use the sheriff's department because they have violated their diplomatic or their legal immunity on this. They've exhausted it. They don't have it anymore. They broke the law. So if they want to send somebody out to harass me, they either have to A, find somebody who will pretend like I'm committing a crime against them, or B, they have to send the state patrol out. So, or the sheriff's department. Now, the state patrol having already screwed up there, both in the Dalles and in Hood River, they can't be trusted. I did talk to one of the sheriff's deputies last night. He thought I was some guy named Eric Eric something that's no. Obviously, I'm not that guy. Obviously, they let me go because I'm not that guy. They just needed to give some paper to them. But the thing is, I never get to the point of the papers because I have to go in my predators. I am forced to turn in my predators to my predators over and over again. Being forced to turn in Scott DaCosta, literally to Scott DaCosta. How the fuck is that okay? To have Scott DaCosta investigate Scott DaCosta. That's in Chapel, Nebraska. How about Officer Schneider? Oh, he's recorded in this situation too, and so is the dispatch there in Tacoma. Recorded. Actually recorded. When I tried to turn in Officer Schneider, I was sent to Officer Schneider so that Officer Schneider could investigate himself. Just like I was sent to Scott DaCosta so that Scott DaCosta could investigate himself. Just like I was sent to Amanda Jonas in Longmont so that she could investigate herself. Well, investigate herself and her co-workers. One of which was involved in Natalie Marie Bollinger's case in Denver, Colorado, and was transferred out of there. He was transferred to Longmont, probably over a situation similar to what happened with Waylon Lolatai. He's one of the meat hooks. You guys see those officers who are huge? They lift a lot of weights. They do that because they like to hurt people. They want to be able to hurt people easily and make them look embarrassed. Make them look like weaklings. There's a lot of stuff I could be doing right now if I had money and a place to do it. Everything costs money, don't it? The money that should have been used to take care of myself and to defend myself and to protect myself. The money that was intended for that purpose didn't get to be used on that in any of the last 6 years. All of it is spent trying to find a safe place where I can actually get help, that I'm not blown off. I spend some on tools because I won't have the money for a mechanic. In order to stop this abuse, I have to be able to show my evidence. And that's not going to happen unless someone really gets on board and actually cares. The police lied a lot. Brandon Ratner, rather than coming forward about what he knew, wanted to chase vagina. And then, of course, he has a tiny situation. He doesn't even have to leave. He leaves a house, just one house. It's not like being shipped from one end of the country to the other for the promise of help. Meanwhile, I wouldn't have needed any of that help if Brandon Ratner would have helped the first time I went to him. Or if Miss Peaches, a.k.a. Kayla Trujillo, had helped me the first time I went to her. Or Brenda Dickinson. Or Laura Nelson. Out of all these people, the only one who was actually on board with turning in these predators was Tamara, and she quit her job before Natalie got her brains blown out. So that was actually the point where it went from me having help to me having to scramble, running around like a chicken with my head cut off because it was unsafe for me to be in Chapel. It's always been unsafe for me to be in Chapel. Chapel, Nebraska is one of those towns where it's not okay to be different. And you'd tell me to move. Well, where to? Where in the United States do people not hold these bias against disabled people, homeless people, and males? It doesn't exist. Tacoma just laid waste to an entire camp. About 200 people living there altogether. And they're claiming that they're offering these people beds at a shelter that doesn't exist yet, that is only going to have room for 50 people. Where is this place at? It hasn't been built yet, so you're offering these people nothing in return for destroying their entire lives, destroying everything that they have done to try to get themselves unhomeless. You've not only taken away their efforts, but you've taken away the efforts of every single person who tried to help them. You flushed them down the toilet again and made them start off from ground zero. The United States deserves to be nuked. That's equality. That's an end to all of our pain. Yes, I am against killing people, but I'm not against stating my opinion. My opinion is humanity is a plague upon this planet. My opinion is that human beings could be decent. But see, we've got these laws that are created to help the victims that are ignored. And then there are laws that are set up to help predators to get away with it. It's because our lawmakers, most of them are predators. That's what prompts them to seek such positions. There are some people, like, of course, Dakota Richmond. He thinks he's always right. Now, he's gay and from Chapel, Nebraska. You can, I'm sure, imagine how well that went over. Well, it went over a lot smoother than it could have because I stuck up for him. I stuck up for a lot of people. I stuck up for gay people. I stuck up for brown people. I stuck up for a lot of different people. Now, Dakota, he's one of those folks who got a big head. He was everyone's favorite. He was Todd's favorite out of all of them kids. But Todd was very anti-gay. He's a weekend Christian. He talks about being Christian, but then, of course, he'll spend thousands of dollars of his inheritance money to try to get Jamie messed up on alcohol so he can have sex with her. He's a lot of years older than Jamie Curtis. A lot. But yeah, Todd Rust wasn't just buying alcohol. He was providing alcohol to minors. People like Dallas Richmond. And some of Jamie's other friends. You know, if he finances everything, then you know how it is. She owes him something. Well, Todd would throw his wife away in a heartbeat if Jamie Curtis said that she'd give him a chance. And I've recorded almost everybody in his family talking about the situation with Jamie. and their situations with her. And it turns out that the conversations I had with these people, you get to hear out of their very own voices, their very own faces, that their experiences were the same. That I did tell the truth about my stories. This is not okay. People could make the time, but they have to care enough to do so. When you're afraid of what other people think, you tell me I shouldn't care what other people think. But then there's consequences, isn't there? And that's why you, despite giving me that advice, you care what other people think. Oh, and then you want to use, oh, you might lose your stuff if you tell the truth. Like somehow that's supposed to make me feel better. No, I lost everything because I told the truth and because you didn't back me up. You didn't come forward and tell the truth when you had the chance and the opportunity, when it would have made a difference. Like Brandon Ratner could have come forward about the fact that I was trying to get help well before Natalie was ever killed. He could have come forward about any number of stories that I told that were true, and he did, sort of, in conversations with me, but where's the proof? Where's the proof that you tried to turn this into the cops? What officer? See, none of these people who claim they tried to turn stuff into the cops have any proof. And then, of course, that's when they want to play victim, isn't it? How about you try doing it with me this time, so that instead of me having to take your word for it when you're not going to or make a police report about it, how about you fess up so I got something to turn in? How about you make the call with me so that I can verify that you were blown off in such a way, so that I can record it like I do with my situations when at all possible. But you have the availability to do it. You have the availability that even if you have a job, when you get off work, you go home. You've got a roof over your head. You've got electrical outlets. You've got electricity. You've got everything that you need there. I can't afford that. I can't even afford 1 month's rent on what I get for disability in a month. What are you expecting out of me? Not to mention the damage to my credit because I'm poor. And then you guys who, the only advantage that you have is that you've got credit. You want to pretend that everybody had the magic start that you had, that everybody had parents that gave a shit, that everybody gets donated thousands of dollars when they graduate high school. There's a lot of poor people that don't get to finish high school. They got brothers and sisters to feed. The thing is, I'm not seeing any evidence of schizophrenia. I'm not seeing any evidence of delusions. See, that's the biggest thing that is bothering me about Scott saying that yesterday. You can see the difference between him, and don't get me wrong, lots of people get stuff wrong or make bad assumptions or are paranoid for whatever reason. You know, there's lots of guys that I know who are irrationally unreasonable because, well, they don't want to lose their girlfriend. They're afraid that if he goes off and finds somebody who's better looking, has a bigger pocketbook or a bigger dick, that he's going to be alone, so he gets possessive. And yeah, that happens. But that's not schizophrenia either. Now you can look at the difference between Scott. He's been on my channel more than once. You can tell the difference between him and Mr. Farnsworth. Mr. Farnsworth is schizophrenic. And Now, one thing to be said about that as well is that I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified to diagnose either one of those gentlemen as schizophrenic. What I do know is that the situations that I was there for, that Scott was there for, what Scott had to say about the situation was true. That don't seem delusional or schizophrenic. His words match up with what was recorded. That don't seem schizophrenic or delusional. So the thing is, even if somebody is diagnosed, doesn't mean that it's true. And even if it is true, it doesn't mean that they're lying, and it doesn't mean that it's okay to automatically discredit them from the start because of it. With me, you get to see how, even though I'm not diagnosed with schizophrenia, how they did exactly what I said they would do with the mentally ill tag, which is pretend that I was schizophrenic and use that as an excuse to ignore any and all crimes against me and pretend I made them up. And we all know that people who are schizophrenic or delusional are prime targets for predators, because predators want to choose somebody who nobody's going to believe. That's why if you are called mentally ill, you need a family who cares about you, who's going to stick up for your rights, who's going to be understanding of the fact that you are an at-risk adult and people are going to try to victimize you, and that they are the only thing standing in the way of that. All right, I was going to ask if that bug was one of the flies that looks like a bee or an actual bee, but it flew off.
Yeah, there's bees and wasps today.
I still can't quite tell the difference between the ones that are flies and the ones that are bees. I know the bees that are over by the bushes over there, most of them don't have stingers. But they're definitely bees and not flies. And the flies will bite, so you might think you got stung. I was making a video about Scott. Oh yeah, I figure it, nobody's perfect, and that doesn't make people bad people.
No.
I also complained that people have their own lives and they've got their own families, and that things aren't easy for any of us right now, so.
No, he gets to still go see his neurologist tonight.
Oh God.
Yeah. And he's not feeling too hot today, so.
Yeah, Jared wasn't able to help me last week. He said he was going to try this weekend, depending on how he's feeling, so.
Yeah. My back popped on me last night.
Oh God, and you got to go see a neurologist with a screwed up back?
Yeah. No, for my brain.
I didn't say for your back, I said with.
With your back.
Yes.
Then you might end up.
I got a headache from hell, and all my joints hurt, but I've got 2 herniated discs in my back and arthritis in my back, and just twisting to get out of the car last night, it popped and I couldn't walk.
See, I got the same issue. I'm lucky right now because I didn't pop it last night.
I'm not supposed to pop it.
It's difficult to get information correctly expressed when in pain, though. Like if you got to talk to a neurologist about your head stuff, but you're also in physical pain with a headache, it might not come out right.
Yeah.
That's why he has me.
See, and that's one of the things that I was even talking about on my video. You are a fucking powerhouse, pardon my French. I'm definitely glad that they have you, and they're lucky to have you.
Ooh.
Oh great, now you're breaking your vertebrae.
No.
What'd you do?
I popped it this way, but I need to pop it that way.
Oh.
And it's not wanting to pop that way. That's
Well,
not
your
good.
neck never pops, so you at least got it once.
True. I have issues with my neck.
Yeah, I popped my neck already and it hurts.
Most of my issues, I've got a couple of them in my cervical vertebrae, but most of it's lumbar, the L3 and L5.
I've just never been able to really pop my neck, and so when I do, it's like,
I gotta get up though and move at least a little bit because I am getting stoked up.
Yeah. I make sure I walk even if it hurts too much to do so, because if I stay still too long, I get stiff.
Oh, I just popped again.
I move it even if it hurts, because if I don't move it, it'll hurt worse. I think I'm going to try to find some tobacco at another 30 cents for coffee, and then I'm going to go into Starbucks and try to get my computer working. Because if I can't get my computer working, then asking people to sit down and look at stuff doesn't do any good. They end up
Today's gonna be a cane day.
just sitting there like you had to yesterday. Well, all right, you didn't have to. I guess I shouldn't say it that way. That makes it sound like I'm a slave driver whipping you with chains.
Like I said, today's gonna be a cane day.
Yes, indeed. I totally want to film you doing that because I do the same thing. I'll do that over the back of my car. Or I'll lay back on my back and put my feet up.
Well, last night was bad because because of the herniated disc and the arthritis. It was so cold last night. We don't have heat in here unless we're driving. It blows heat, but when we're sitting, it don't blow heat. So I was ice cold last night, and then I've got the pins and screws in my hip and in my leg, and a rod, and so I was hurting so damn bad from the metal getting cold. I couldn't walk last night, and today I'm trying to work through it a little bit, just to, yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll get my Medicare and all that up and running so I can see a neurologist. I really need to. I got to see somebody about my back too. I want to talk to the lady that's at the Seventh-day Adventist at 5 though. The two ladies that work at the hospital there. I want to get to know them a little bit and find out what they're able to do until my Medicare comes in, because there's, you know, with me being victimized and treated like I'm schizophrenic, it's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not okay to treat schizophrenic people like that when they try to turn in crimes against them. So it's definitely not okay to do it to me.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm still going. I ain't laying down on the job. Well, I am right now. Oh, God.
I know the difference. The doctor in Cheyenne explained to me like this. He said, you know what? It's your back. There's not a whole lot we can do about it. You're going to have some good days and some bad days.
The way I'm sleeping today, though, I have a feeling the only time I do that is when I have a heart attack. So I'm wondering if I had a heart attack in my sleep last night. Because I got the headache, and I got either that or I could have had another stroke, because the headache ain't up here like it was. It's back here like the last two strokes.
I got mine on the back of the head or right behind my eyeballs.
But then I got a spot right here in my
Yup.
neck that hurts constantly. So I think I might just have a pinched nerve. I don't know.
I thought that was what was wrong with my back, because I got like a rainbow of pain across it all the time. One part is the stabby feeling, like when your foot goes to sleep, but the hurtful one, not the it's numb one. And then part of it is like it's really hot, and then there's a part that's really cold, and then there's just below it between the L5 and L3 vertebrae. That's the most sensitive part. Just touching it sometimes hurts. And standing up, sometimes I have to grab a hold of my backside or push off of my knees, because just the muscle tension on it is enough for me to cringe.
They gave me 4 cortisone shots at once in my back.
Oh my God.
Asked me how it worked, and I just made it clear to me, okay, that was our test. We can't burn the nerves in your back.
if that would have worked, then they would have burned the nerves. But because it didn't work, made it worse, they can't burn the nerves in my back.
One of the things they were talking about with me is metal rods or putting cement in there. I'm like, cement in my back? Are you sure that's a good idea? And then this lady, Molly, in Nebraska, she got her knee operated on, and they gave her an artificial knee, and they put cement in it, and she was allergic to the cement. I went, well, that's a possibility of something could happen.
Well, I was watching on Facebook, you know how they always have different things on Facebook that pop up.
Yeah.
They were showing how they take silicone now and drill a hole in your vertebrae and fill it in with the silicone, and it actually pressurizes it and lifts, forms the vertebrae again, but it's on the inside that they're doing silicone.
It's like if you've got a degenerative disease, it's eating your bone marrow. They can,
Yeah.
my bone marrow is fine.
Well, I've got degenerative disc disease, and
So do I.
my doctor told me when they did the cortisone shot, he goes, "What did that doctor send you there for?" Which was my doctor before this one. He goes, "With them knowing that you got degenerative disc disease and giving you the cortisone anyways that deteriorates bone," he says, "I'm not giving you any more between 3 and 5 years before you're in a wheelchair." And that was 13 years ago, and I'm still going, but
Well, they told me I got degenerative disc disease in January 2018. Although I had to reschedule my doctor's appointment on that twice because of legal issues. Matter of fact, I was supposed to do it through the Colorado Coalition of the Homeless with a guy named Jeff Ritter, and he was supposed to be my therapist, and Kara Heller was supposed to be my case manager, but neither one of them did their jobs. They knew about the situation with Natalie, and they just kept on trying to get me to jump through any hoop except for what they needed to do as a mandated reporter.
I know I gotta go into the store. I gotta go pee, but I don't know. It's gonna take me a while to get there.
Well, I'll walk with you.
Baby?
Okay. You got cane?
You gonna have her drive you to the door?
Nope, I'm gonna walk.
All right.
Oh, and yes, that pop right there just caused the one in between my shoulder, the herniated disc between my shoulder blades to hurt. So now I'm really fucking up the vertebrae.
I'm lucky I don't have anything in the thoracic region. I've got pain there, but it's from the lumbar and cervical issues.
What?
I didn't hear what you said either. Right. See, that's what I try to explain, and
my doctor just keeps pushing them on me. He says, "Take them when you need them. Maybe you should take them a little more often, though." And I fuck that. You know, I go through 60 pills in about 2 to 3 months. He says, "Yeah, but I'm giving you enough to take 2 a day for 28 days." He says, "And you're lasting 2 to 3 months on."
yeah, they're supposed to cut down on handing out opiates, but when I went up there for my back issues, they weren't willing to even look at my back. They just wanted to give me opiates. I'm like,
Oh, he told me that they were cutting down on it, but because I don't misuse them and I am doing what I'm doing, he has no problem giving them to me. It's like, yeah, but you're trying to make me another fucking zombie, and I don't like that.
That's one of the things that a lot of people, they don't speak about. They'll talk to me about it. I'm like, hey, will you speak about that on my channel? Oh, I can't do that.
Well, the reason why I feel like a zombie, they ain't giving me the minimum. They're giving me the max. Well, I don't know if it's the max, but they give me the Narcos, which is hydrocodone, but they give me the 10s instead of the 5. And then they're giving me, instead of the 5 milligrams on Flexerol, muscle relaxer, they're giving me the 10s on those too.
That was the biggest problem with me growing up. They'd keep on giving me medications that made me feel sick and zombied all the time.
Oh, they
And then
tried me on
they want me to function on that. Are you kidding me? They're like, oh, well, if you take these pills, it'll fix it. No, 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 no. Those pills aren't going to make it so I can turn in my predators. Those pills aren't going to give me resources to do that. Those pills are going to make me sick. I've been on your pills. I know what they do.
Well, they tried me on 2 different other ones. And I said, They tried me on, just made me sleep more often than even these ones. Then they switched me to methadone. Now that really make me sick. I was throwing up constantly, and I was like, I'm not on meth, so why give me methadone? Well, it helps with some people off of the what you call the
Opiates, yep.
it helps get people off of it. And I was like,
I'm not on them.
okay. So
If you're not on them, why are they
took me
giving
off
them to
those
you?
two and said, you're
Thank you, sir.
you don't need to be on this. And then you need to opiate.
Yeah, that was the hospital in Hood River tried giving me opiates. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I got back issues, yeah, and I got pain. But if I take your opiates, first of all, it doesn't touch the pain. It barely does anything to it. But then when it wears off, it's 10 times more painful than it was before I took the meds.
Yeah, and I normally don't take them unless I'm taking them off out dancing or I'm going hunting. Okay, or when I'm antler hunting because I'm walking so many miles.
And see, that's important because dinner getting is important, especially when you're poor. A lot of
And
people
by
don't
the time
understand
that-
the importance of
well,
hunting for that.
When I take the pills, I don't get tired. It's when I get towards the middle of the 8 hours or whatever, then I'm just crashing. I fall asleep and I can't wake up.
That's
Well,
me
that's
with
half
2
of
cups
my
of
day.
coffee. If I drink 2 cups of coffee in 30 minutes, I'm out. Ain't no
I like
keeping
to
me
do
conscious.
things during the day. But I don't want to sleep all day and miss out on the daily thing.
All right, so I'm going to give you my honest assessment on what you said earlier. You're right. That was extremely slow, and it did take forever to get here.
I keep moving. I keep moving.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off my camera because I don't take it into the bathroom with me, and I got to poop. So it wasn't just about you. I'm not here to stalk you or to be your bodyguard or to hold your anything.